I just wanted to talk through some of the common metals that are used for our outdoor furniture. These are going to relate specifically to the bins, but obviously this detail carries over into some of the other pieces. So aluminium is widely used on a lot of our products. Aluminium is a readily available material, highly suited to use in the outdoor environment due to its corrosion resistance. It's considered a relatively green material due to how easily it's recycled, and obviously if it can be recycled it can be reused. So from Australian virgin aluminium, about 60 to 70% of its content is actually reclaimed aluminium. It's a product that doesn't degrade over time, so each time you reuse it, it doesn't get any weaker or anything like that, unlike something like plastic that as we continue to recycle it degrades. It's also considered a lightweight metal, and it's quite a soft metal, so typically we need to use a slightly heavier gauge compared to the equivalent that we might be doing in steel. From a machining point of view, it's soft, so it's readily cut and folded. Welding typically adds cost because it requires skilled labour and is also a slow process. Also, aluminium is something that we can cast, sand cast and die cast. Quite available to us because aluminium has a lower melting temperature than steel, so it doesn't require as expensive setup from a tooling point of view. From the coatings, powder coated is highly suited to aluminium. It has great adhesion to the aluminium. Powder coating obviously shows the base finish, so whatever the finish of the aluminium is what you'll see through the powder coat. Extrusions and sheet versions of aluminium typically have a really smooth finish out of the factory, so the powder coating will come up and look nice and smooth. The other option that we've got is a 2-pack wet spray. This is quite a bit more expensive than powder coat, nominally kind of 4 times more expensive, but 2-pack further improves the corrosion resistance that powder coating has. Powder coating has a certain element of porosity to it, so if you need something even more durable, then 2-pack is the go, but it adds cost. The other finish that we have for aluminium is anodizing, which further improves corrosion resistance and also adds some surface hardening of the aluminium. So if scratching and scuffing is going to be a problem, then anodizing helps by making that surface a lot harder. The only downside of anodizing is if there's any welding or linishing that happens to that aluminium, it will show up. The welding adds a different silica content to it, and so you can see it through the anodizing. So a bit of a finicky kind of process. That being said, on any of the products coming in from Landscape Forms, they die cast and then anodize their products, and the finish is fantastic. Looks really great. So yeah, from that point of view, it's really good. The other thing that anodizing gives is great graffiti resistance. So it removes a lot of the porosity of the conventional cast aluminium, and so inks coming from spray paints and markers aren't going to penetrate in, and so they're quite easily removed with the right products and things like that. So that's the benefit of anodizing. From a corrosion resistance, we see aluminium as being good, but as always, just wash these with fresh water to get rid of the contaminants. Corrosion will be increased by salt spray and debris being able to sit and be deposited on the surface. So the more often they're cleaned, the longer they're going to last in the outdoor environment. And finally, from a cost point of view, we see aluminium as a mid-priced metal. It's more expensive than steel, but cheaper than stainless steel. Next material we'll talk about is steel. We'll often refer to it as mild steel, but this is just regular old steel or mild steel. As a bit of an overview, it's a readily available material that is highly suited to structural use due to its strength and machinability. Obviously, it's highly corrosive in its raw state, so it always requires a protective finish to go on it. Obviously, corroded steel is rust, and it happens very easily on the raw piece. The other thing is steel is heavy against something like aluminium. So any products that have steel as a one of the key materials are always going to be heavy. Think something like the Bondi bin, for example. From a machining point of view, it's readily cut, folded, and welded. So machining of this is really quite easy. There's lots of different ways in which we can weld it, and it can be a fast process. So generally the machining and manufacture of this stuff is relatively cheap. From a coatings point of view, galvanizing is the main one that we'll use in an outdoor environment. There are two types of galvanizing that we kind of deal with. The main one is hot dip galvanizing. And this piece here has been hot dip galvanized, and this is a process by where we submerge the piece of mild steel into a bath of molten zinc and basically coats it in that zinc, which gives it a nice coating that's resistant to corrosion. Zinc doesn't readily corrode. Really durable finish. It can be dragged and scratched, and that zinc isn't going to come off. It's a nice thick coating that's on there. The downside is that you get these little gnarly bits that are left on there after the galvanizing process. Very difficult to remove these and takes a lot of time. So we just kind of leave them as is. It doesn't detract from the performance. Obviously it detracts from the looks, but it is just a function of hot dip galvanizing. The payoff is that you get something that's really tough and durable. So has a pretty kind of distinct look, but a bit rough and ready, kind of almost agricultural in its presence. The other type of galvanizing is pre-galvanized sheet and tube. Okay, so only available to sheet. So think thin gauge steel as well as tubes, and it has a very iconic look to it. The finish of this, again, it's galvanizing, so it's got a zinc coating, but it's a lot smoother. It's done mechanically, so they're able to control the finish on it and give it a much smoother finish there. Both of those can be powder coated. Powder coating doesn't have as good an adhesion to gal as it does to something like aluminium. And the other thing too is that powder coating these will show the base finish. So if we powder coat a hot dip galvanized product, those little gnarly bits will show through the powder coat. Alternatively, if you need better adhesion of a coloured coating, we can always 2-pack wet spray these. Again, the cost of 2-pack is considerably more than powder coat, but has much better adhesion, so it's going to stay on there a lot longer. If you don't want the rough look of the hot dip galvanized, then we can also do a zinc powder prime. This gives a much smoother finish than gal, but it's nowhere near as durable and isn't going to give us the long corrosion resistance that galvanizing does. With zinc powder priming, it's a powder coating process. We take the raw steel, we sandblast it to get rid of any corroded material that sits on the surface and etch up the material so that we get really good adhesion. We then cover it with a zinc-rich powder primer and then go through the powder coating process where we heat the piece and it fuses on. We then bring it out and then we spray on the top coat colour, and it goes back through the cycle and we get our coloured top coat. Nice smooth finish, but not as durable as hot dip galvanizing. The other thing that you can do for steel is chrome plate it, but it's not something that we offer for outdoors. You don't get good corrosion resistance with chrome, so we don't offer any of our products or outdoor products with a chrome plated finish. From a corrosion resistance point of view, hot dip galvanizing is really good. Zinc powder prime, not bad. Keep it away from coastal areas. Obviously, if it gets dinged or anything like that, and the zinc primer comes off, then you're left with raw steel, which is quite vulnerable to rusting. And again, wash these with fresh water to reduce the chance of corrosion. From a cost point of view, steel is nice and cheap, so it's a good material from that point of view. The last metal that we're using a lot of is stainless steel. From an overview point of view, stainless steel, readily available material that's highly suited to use in the outdoor environment due to A, its corrosion resistance, B, a nice hard wearing surface, and also it has great tensile strength, so structurally a really good material to be using. available in 2 grades, 304, which is your common food and hospital-based grade, and then also 316, which is the really good outdoor grade. Stainless steel varies from regular steel because of its nickel and chromium content. Both of those metals added in give it that improved corrosion resistance. 316, they add a metal called molybdenum, which further improves the corrosion resistance. Great thing about stainless steel is that it doesn't require a finish coating. It can go out in its raw state, and raw stainless steel can be readily refinished. So after some time in use, we can go out and repolish it and bring it back up to looking new. From a machining point of view, it's high tensile, so much harder to machine, and typically the working costs will increase to cover the tool usage and wear, and also the machine's having to work at a much slower rate than something like aluminium or mild steel. But it's quite easy to cut it. We often laser cut or plasma cut and can be readily folded. It's also easily welded, but it is a more expensive process as it requires skilled labour to weld stainless steel, and it's quite a slow process. The finishing of stainless steel, obviously polishing, so putting a satin polish into this is also a timely process, and so that can add a lot of cost. So one way to bring the cost of a stainless product down is to just put a coating onto it. From a coatings point of view, we can offer it polished, and the standard there is a satin polished or brushed. We can buy sheet gauges and tubes pre-polished, which obviously brings a lot of the cost out. Otherwise we need to polish it afterwards, which is the expensive process. We can also powder coat stainless steel. It is easily powder coated, but it doesn't have good adhesion like aluminium does. One of the things that we can do to improve adhesion is give stainless a whip blast, which is basically a very light sandblasting, and it etches the surface and improves the adhesion of it, but obviously adds cost. The other thing we can do is a 2-pack wet spray, and we know that it's a more durable material, but again, further adds cost to this. From a corrosion resistance point of view, obviously stainless steel is the winner of all of these. 316 is fantastic, but there's associated costs with that. 304 does have good corrosion resistance, but you will experience some tea staining in outdoor environments, which is a very fine surface corrosion, almost rusting. It's easy to remove. You can put some sprays and things on that to reduce the chance of tea staining, and obviously rinsing it with fresh water is going to eliminate it too. From a cost point of view, obviously stainless steel is the most expensive of the metals that we've been talking about, mainly due to the content of nickel and chromium and things like that.